tell us what is ESG briefly, and then why we are focusing on the S today.
Yes. Well, good to be back, Wanjira. Thank you so much. And maybe I'll just jump right in. So in terms of S, this is the human aspect of ESG.
The human aspect.
The human aspect. And here we focus on the social capital, in that it interrogates how businesses deal with the community, how they deal with the end users of their products. So how do consumers feel about the products and services that these businesses are offering? And it also focuses again on the internal. How are you working with your employees? How are your employees feeling about the business? The S aspect covers various things. So it's employee rights, and that also includes work and health, safety, and now mental health.
Very, very key.
Mental health. Mental health.
Yeah.
And now it's also expanded to work-life balance. There's also now diversity and inclusion. There's data protection, which is under S. I think most people are not aware of that.
Yeah.
Consumer protection. That's just to name a few of the critical aspects of what ESG looks like.
The S, the S aspect of it. So where does diversity fall in?
Both the employee aspect and also the social aspect. The employee aspect, because we have begun to get data that boards that are more diverse, meaning they have women, they have young people, and I'm happy to say that Iconradio has very young people.
Very good points.
That also the consumers of those products and services want diversity reflected. So it's internal, but also external. And if you see in the West, companies, for example, like Nike, they want to be more representative of colored persons. And, as a result, we actually have a Kenyan who's really pushing that brand.
Yes. Yeah.
So diversity, equity, and inclusion, and just not making it a token. We're not just ticking it, but integrating it into the business of company. And in that way, it also impacts the community.
Amazing. So how does that now affect the company's overall sustainability and performance?
Well, that's a bit nuanced, and it's a very tough question. Now, because ESG in general, not only the social aspect, because ESG in general is very hard to measure, because there's no one legislation that affects it. In fact, if I could say, about 5,000 pieces of different legislation affects ESG. Yeah.
Wow. So that is locally or internationally?
Internationally, so globally. 5,000 different pieces of legislation touch on ESG. So it's very hard to come up with a standardized format. And as a result, it becomes very hard to measure the impact of ESG. While that's the case, increasingly, there are reporting mechanisms which have been adopted and which are now beginning to show the impact on performance of a company.
Oh, really?
So, yes.
This one's like reporting mechanisms. Maybe you can give us an example so that people can now understand what they need to do.
Exactly. So there's GRI, which is the Global Reporting Initiative, which focuses on framework and which regulators like. So, for example, the NSC and CMA guidelines in Kenya are I could say the GRI facing. And it's because this focuses generally on all stakeholders. And then you have the Sustainability Accounting, the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, which is SASB. And this usually influence investor decision making. So those are the two standards that have gained popularity. companies which are more compliant with S are actually better to invest in. And that's why investors now not only, because initially the push was from private equity and venture capitalists, but now institutional investors want companies to comply with ESG as a whole, but also S. Why? Because it means you have less litigation risk. You don't have your employees going on strikes, which would affect business. You don't have a high reputational risk. So you are, and not only that, you can talk about workplace safety. We're also talking about consumer protection.
That is so clear. And I hope that companies now have a clear understanding of how the S aspect is their it actually is more of what builds their business. Because without the S aspect in ESG, then it means that you do not understand what the community and what responsibility, because I know like right now in Kenya, they've been the implementation of the climate action policies and laws are they're still not there yet, but there's a producer responsibility policy that is there. So companies need to be really responsible. Like you said, they need to have a clear gateway of what it is that they're doing in their business. So that they're able to make sure that you will not attract investors and you'll not attract business if you're not doing business the right way. And you're not taking into accountability how the social aspect plays a major role. Because consumer responsibility, like when we're talking about data protection, we're not just talking about the internet. We're talking about every aspect of data that is collected by your company.
Exactly.
Every aspect of it.
Exactly.
All right. So right about now, we're going to take a very short break. And then when we come back, we'll continue this discussion. And I really hope that you're really getting the nuggets about the S aspect and how important it is for you to ensure that you're compliant with the ESG policies in the country. We are going to be talking about how to Kenyanize this, man. How we need to Kenyanize these policies so that, and I'm not even talking about Africanize it. I think we need to start locally because we're still implementing policies from the international regulatory platforms. But how do we now? I know the stakeholders were really trying to bring it home, but what else can we do? So that is what we're going to be discussing right after this short break. Remember to catch remember to catch this discussion on www.iconradio.co.ke. That is the live stream, and on our social media platforms. We are continue talking to us. We are talking about the S aspect in the ESG, and we want to know the regulations and the Kenyan companies that. The Kenyan policies. Almost lost myself there. So thank you so much. So let's talk after this short break. What do you think about the regulations behind the ESG aspect in the country?
I think they're fantastic.
On paper?
No, because I interface with the law quite frequently. So it's not only on paper. And I think probably some of your guests may feel differently, but I've actually seen the impact of ESG related legislation. So maybe to focus on the S aspect of legislation. Of course, we have our constitution, which is quite vibrant, our constitutional rights, which now embody several aspects of human rights. So, of course, we can start with the basics which are freedom from discrimination, and that has a lot of litigation behind it. The employment court, the constitutional court, all aspects of courts adhere to the Constitution. You have the Employment Act, the Occupational Safety and Health Act, which are very vibrant acts, to the extent that in Kenya, we actually have our Employment and Labor Relations Court, which is dedicated to looking solely at employee matters. And that has just shifted how many businesses engage, because recruitment has to be fair and non-discriminatory, how they gauge employees on their performance, on the work and safety and health of employees. Because now, if you don't, you breach legislation and you have to pay. So it's going to the extent that now employers have insurance, either group life insurance or insurance and other work injuries benefits act, to protect their employees. So I'd say, especially on employment law, we are doing very well. We're not like countries, and I'm sorry to say, like the US, where they're fighting over maternity. For example, maternity leave. It's actually a right in Kenya. You are entitled to 3 months. It's the law. And I've seen even companies that hire short-term employees, say for 3 or 2 months, they actually comply with it. So you'd engage an employee maybe on a 3-year contract, and they are already pregnant. So you can refuse to engage them because they're pregnant, unless it's an inherent requirement of the job that if you're pregnant, then there can be harm. But for example, one company I was conducting a due diligence on, tea picking. You can be pregnant and pick tea. So these employees who are engaged when they're pregnant. 2 months into the contract, which is maybe a 3-month contract, 2 months into the contract, the employee gives birth, but under the law, she's entitled to maternity leave. So that means that the company has to pay for the 3 months. Yes.
Really?
Yes, it does happen. It does happen in Kenya.
When you talk about stakeholder engagement, like let's give an example for a waste management company. Who are the right people? Like when they're talking about engagement, because you have to talk to literally everyone. You have to talk to you have to talk to, I don't know who, you have to talk to the regulatory
regulators.
So who in different industries, I know it's different regulators, but is there a cap, an umbrella where you say, like, this is where you're starting as a manufacturer or a startup, this is the one place that you need to start, right? Or is it still haphazard? They still know that one. Or should we send it to the ministry and the community, environment, and
okay, now there's not one place you can just get data. And it's not because of disorganization. Most of it is because, as you said, different industries have different peculiarities. But the good thing about professional associations, they're trying very hard to try and find what is relevant to you. So for manufacturers, of course, there are different manufacturers with different emphasis, but at least if I'm a manufacturer, this is my baseline. So it really does help to be in professional associations, and not only Apex, like CAM or KEPSA, but increasingly what I'm seeing, especially in the digital financial space, seems to be, I think, 3 or 4 associations. So you have the FinTech Association of Kenya, then you have the Digital Financial, I think, Association of Kenya. I'm not sure that they do different things.
I wanted to ask, are they replicating, or are they doing something different?
Exactly. But I don't know whether even, I can't tell you because I'm not a member because of my profession. But I don't know whether what DFAC does and FinTech Kenya, FinTech, whether what they do is different. But it seems there's actually a space for both of them.
Yeah.
So that must tell you that they're attracting different interests. But again, that's what would happen. So if you're in waste management, I'm sure, because we are Kenyans,
there's always an
association. There must be an association.
Yeah, the association that I know is a clean cooking association.
Exactly.
And then there's a waste management something.
Exactly.
And they're always there. So you just need to find your
group.
Yeah.
Because there you would also try and get information. And most of these associations, what they do is provide you with data. Yeah. So data as a market entrant, data as a person who's already in the market, and even data if you're trying to exit the market.
Yeah.
So that I think that would be most prudent to do at this time. Okay. Yeah. And of course, also an ESG consultant or a sustainability manager if your business can afford it.
No. So what's your final word to companies that are looking to integrate S in the ESG or just the whole ESG aspect?
The S, because of the sophistication of consumers, it's something you cannot ignore. It certainly isn't. And if you want investments or financing, it's also something you honestly cannot ignore. And I'd say sooner rather than later. Be compliant with the social aspects that affect your company. Get to know what those aspects are. Engage a consultant at Greenwave Kenya. I am a consultant, but so are my other partners, Grace Joki and Sharon Waringa. And we definitely can assist. If not us, then there are very many people in this space. They will definitely assist you. There are also sustainability experts. In some of them are focused maybe on E more than G or S. Some of them are broad-based, like Greenwave on other aspects. So even engage, like if your business can afford it, hire a sustainability manager. I do know for a fact most banks have sustainability departments to ensure that the entire business cycle and the entire business operations are sustainable and ESG focused, compliant. So that would be my parting shot. And as I usually say, if you're ESG conscious, that makes good business sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. That has been Julie Mulindi, a partner at JM Low. Oh, it's been such a wonderful afternoon, morning into afternoon. And thank you so much for being part of this conversation and just helping us understand what ESG means, what why we need to be compliant about it, and also the S aspect being a crucial aspect, especially in the ESG. And I feel like this is a conversation that we'll continue having more, because you just can't teach math one day and then you understand it in one day. We have to continuously make that noise and just let the people know that, this is our area of focus in terms of creating awareness. And we want to help businesses thrive by just understanding what policies are there, what practices they need to adapt, and how we can move from, actually, before you leave, let me just ask you this. CSR and ESG, what different are they?
Yes. Good question. Very different. Extremely different. So corporate social responsibility is more broad-based, and it's about how a company can engage with its community. And it doesn't really need to relate to the business. I think that's the main distinction.
It does not have to do anything with that business.
I don't have to create the social impact through the operations of my business or in how my business is structured. So I can have a very huge gender wage gap, and then I can go and plant trees. Yeah. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But ESG is more dimensional. It's about looking at the operations of a company internally in terms of work safety, employee data protection, consumer protection. Oh, sorry. So internal factors would be employee related and also diversity, equity and inclusion. And then it would be externally facing about how is our company interfacing with consumer welfare, and that now falls under consumer protection and data protection. So I cannot say I'm creating a social impact if I don't respect my consumers' data or even their safety and well-being in terms of the consumption of their services. And then it's even now broader based with the community. How am I interfacing with the community? And it's not only an aspect of doing one social good. And I'm not going to discount the impact of CSR. I think it's been very good. I think many communities have benefited from that. But it's looking at the business it's looking at the ESG aspect is more impactful because we're looking at the entire business internally, externally, and generally. So that's the critical difference between CSR. And CSR is more external and it can be on any project, but ESG is more dimensional in requiring a business to have positive impact.
So I feel, and I know for a fact that ESG can help drive your CSR projects.
It does, yes, exactly. Because now your CSR is now more focused, and your CSR is also more impactful when considered as against your business.
Awesome. Now there's that clear distinction that we needed you guys to understand, because a lot of people have been complaining that, see, tunafanyanga CSR. Now you need to understand the distinction that there's one that is external and then there's one that is internal, then moves into external. So thank you so much, Julie, for that. Thank you for being our in-house doctor of matters ESG.
Thank you.
And we know that this is a conversation that I think now next we're going to be focusing on the G aspect, because the environment, and I think we've planted so many trees, it becomes so easy for us to understand the E aspect. But there's also a way that we can help demystify it a little bit further. But we're now going to the G probably into the next session, next time when we invite you guys as Greenwave. So thank you so much for being part of this conversation. And we hope, where can people find you, by the way?
Yes, they can find us on LinkedIn. And they can also find us, if you want to drop us an email, very easily, greenwavekenya@gmail.com. That's quite easy to remember. I can also be found on LinkedIn under Julie Mulindi. Sharon Waringa also on LinkedIn, Sharon Waringa. And last partner, Grace Njoki. She's also accessible on LinkedIn.
All right. Do not worry. I will tag them for you guys, just in case that you did not get that. But we thank you so much for being part of this conversation. And we know that for a fact that this is going to change a lot of, the mindset that we've been having as a society in terms of what ESG is all about and why the buzz about it and why investors are really keen on that in the market. So thank you so much. So this has been Sustainability Connect on Iconradio. And, we have not been reading your SMSs but we'll do that in, time is not on our side. But thank you so much for being part of this conversation. And we hope to, have more conversations around it. So up until next week, Wednesday, thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you.